Our review aims to help understand how society socializes gender through video games. For my part of the presentation, I explore how video game gender differences reciprocally reinforces the socialization of gender. One of the aspects of gender in video games is that is often discussed is the highly discrepant nature of the consumer base. It's common knowledge that boys tend to play more violent video games than girls, and that girls typically do not play violent video games. For my part, I'd like to discuss a possible reason why this is and relate it to gender schemas. As has been shown, according to a Statista report, that men and women make up generally equal parts of the gaming community, with men on average making up slightly more of it, about a 48 to 52% ratio. Gender differences become more apparent when comparing the types of games the two genders typically play. This is shown via a Wikipedia page that gives a breakdown of the composition of gamers' gender in each type of game. This trend shows that women tend to take up more of the consumer base for puzzle and simulation games, whereas guys tend to make up the consumer base for strategy, shooter, and violent adventure games. So the question is, why is this so? One explanation is the idea that people within a gender typically try to act like their gender schema. This is backed up by Berkowitz's studies on theory and the socialization of gender. His theory states that children learn the social rules from society and their parents and act accordingly on them. This is further backed by a study called Felt Pressure to Conform to Cultural Gender Roles, Correlates and Consequences by Schroeder and Libin. This study showed that children were more likely to have gender-based views and act on these views if their parents had enforced gender-biased rules. This is further supported through a study done by Egan and Monson called Social Cognitive Influences on Change and Aggression Over Time. The study found that boys were more likely to act on their aggressive impulses in response to aggressive stimuli than girls were. This said, it is reasonable to say that these behaviors can be transferable to gaming habits and behaviors. Some evidence for this is shown through a trend that 7% of strategy video game players are female. This is despite the fact that much of the content in the games are not overtly gender biased. One possible explanation for this, using Berkowitz's theory, is that girls learn early in life that men mainly occupy government and military leadership roles in society by observation. This produces a gender schema that does not include women as military and government leaders. Thus, women are likely to participate in play that involves military and government leadership roles less. This fits with strategy games, as they are mainly role-playing games of such leadership positions. In addition to this, many of the games also involve a moderate degree of violence, which also does not fit the typical female schema. Of course, there are likely other contributing factors in the lower percentage of female gamers in the strategy games. One other factor is likely contributing is advertising, especially through the internet. Typically, internet advertisements are precisely consumer targeted. So because the consumer base is mostly male, most of the people that are going to hear about the strategy games are men. Another aspect in advertising is the content of the advertisement. Even games that have very little gender bias within the game itself have been shown to have advertisements that appeal to males more than females, as a study done by Bim and Morowitz. In conclusion, these behaviors and trends have a reciprocal effect on socializing gender. Men making up most of the violent and strategy video game demographic continually reinforces the notion that these games and skills are associated with them and are masculine. Having advertisement that is directed towards men helps solidify this trend. Thus, the notion that men and women are different is reinforced by the leisure time activities they participate in.